All right. Hi, guys. It's Rory from Edge of the Box Mentoring here. Interviewing another former teammate of mine, Jamie Edge, who has a great story with the way his football career turned out and what he's doing now. So, Jamie, good to see you, mate. It's been a bit of a while.
Good to see you, Rob.
Sure.
Good to see you, mate.
First question, going back to your youth career, how did the move to Arsenal come about? And I guess you're a bit of a boy wonder, so talk me through that whole journey.
So the journey really come about, I was sort of played for Chelteham Town since I was sort of 8 or 9. And then sort of progressed through the ranks at Cheltenham, got into the first team when I was about 15. So I made the first team squad at 15 under Martin Allen. And then obviously a young lad training and playing with the first team at League 2 level obviously brought about a little bit of interest. Yeah. So I was still playing for the under 18s at the time, and a few clubs come to watch me. At that point, I had I know you speak a lot about mentoring. I sort of had a mentor at Cheltenham Town called Roger Hyatt, and he had some close relations within the Arsenal Academy. So Liam Brady being one and David Court being the other. Yeah. So he mentioned to them that obviously my progress had been quite good within the Cheltenham ranks, and they come along and watch me. Well, I sent a scout to come along and watch me. They liked what they saw. So then from sort of, I was finishing off year 10, I think it was. I think it might have been the Easter holidays. They invited me to come and play a game for Arsenal under 16s. So I went down and played against Portsmouth. I'd done really well. And then after that game, they expressed that they would be interested in signing me. At the same time, a few other clubs had showed interest in me. So I didn't make a decision at that point. But we had sort of Aston Villa, Wolves, Birmingham, sort of Midlands teams, which are relatively local to the Cheltenham area. Yeah. And then I had Manchester United come in for me as well. So we wanted to sort of speak to everyone and give everyone sort of the time of day. So we went down to Manchester United went up to Manchester United for a week and trained with Man United. So my age group, I think I remember getting there, and my age group was sort of Jesse Lingard, Raval Morrison, Zeki Friars, who's at Swindon now. And I just went in and trained for a week. I stayed in a hotel with a scout who was sort of southwest based. Yeah. He took me from Cheltenham, took me up there. And then it just come to a point where they were interested in me, Arsenal were interested in me, but I had a real nice feel about playing for Arsenal. I really got on well with Liam Brady and David Court. They made me feel welcome. So yeah, in the end of the day, we decided to sign for Arsenal. Then the move sort of sped up with me still having a year left at school. So I was going into September would have been my last year at school, year 11. And Arsenal offered the proposition of me taking me out of school and taking me up to London as a 15-year-old boy and put me in digs, and then homeschooling me through my science, maths and English. Yeah. So obviously as a 15-year-old lad, I was sold. Get me out of school, get me training at Arsenal. I was training full time with the under 18s. Obviously, well, mum and dad were a little bit more apprehensive because they value education, and they've both been educated themselves. So there was a little bit of a stumbling block there, a bit of back and forth, but in the end we decided to go for it. So I moved up when I was 15. In that summer, moved into digs with a good lad who I still speak to now, is Ogzhan Ozhukup, he's actually played about 40-50 times for Turkey now. He was captain at Besiktas. He did just go to Feyenoord, but I think he's gone back to Besiktas now. So he's done really well. He's had a great career, and he's a real nice lad, looks after me. Yeah. So yeah, 15-year-old, sort of going down to London.
How was that? How was that journey? Was it daunting, nerve-wracking, exciting?
Yeah, I think when I look back at it now, and definitely as I got a little bit older, even like 17, 18, I did struggle with sort of, now I'm older, I think it was mental health problems in terms of like being anxious and not dealing with the pressure as well as I could have. But when I was 15, it was just excitement. Yeah. It was just going to play football every day at this incredible facility with incredible players, and it was just it was my dream. I was very committed as a young lad, and really wanted to make it. So it was just a dream, and it was all a bit of a blur until I got down there, and I'd done quite well in my first year, and then just things started to, just like I said, dealing with the pressure of being the lad who'd been bought for X amount of money, and there was a lot of pressure for me to do well, and not necessarily from the people inside Arsenal, but I felt the most pressure from the people back home, not my family, but and my close friends, but sort of everyone knew I was at 15, 16, and I went back to school to do my GCSEs, and everyone was asking, how is it? I heard you got bought for all this money, and it was just a little bit. It just sort of played in my mind a little bit, and I never really doubted it, and my performances showed that at Arsenal when I was sort of 17, 18 in the youth team. I didn't really kick on as they would have hoped and they would have expected, and that's where that's where I sort of fell out at Arsenal and it never made it really because I believe because of that.
Did you think? I mean, looking back, hindsight's a wonderful thing. But think back if you'd had somebody, I don't know if you did, had someone to talk to who's maybe a bit more neutral and unbiased. So I'm not talking about someone at the club or an agent who's got vested interest, but if you'd have had someone more neutral, would that have helped? I'm not sure it would.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe looking back on what I know now through education and the psychology of young players and footballers as a whole, maybe that would have helped because I had the youth team manager there, Steve Bold, was unbelievable, like one of the best coaches I've ever had, and as a man, really nice bloke, and he was great to me. But I wasn't playing well on the pitch, so it was difficult for him and it was difficult to me to go to him because I know my performances weren't quite up to scratch. So I always had my mum and dad; they were absolutely brilliant. They've been the rocks in my life, all my life. But they're not there; they're not experiencing it, so they don't know the day-to-day struggles and the day-to-day stuff that you go through as a footballer. So I think it would have really helped. Yeah, and there was experienced lads you could speak to, but I wasn't really that close with them because I'd only known them a year, 2 years. There's not lads that you've sort of grown up with, and so it was difficult. Yeah, it was difficult because people weren't. Because from the outside looking in, people could just see a young lad who's got a big move to Arsenal. He's living the dream, and it was. But then the day-to-day reality of, I think there was something like outside the first team. I think there was something like 75, 80 players, and it's so hard. And for me, going from Cheltenham being like the 14, 15-year-old who was playing in the under-18s in the first team squad, he's the main man. Everyone knows Jamie at Cheltenham. To go in to Arsenal and sort of just being a number was really hard to deal with. And I was so young, and it was so daunting at the thought of I've got to be better than him. Then I've got to be better than him. And then there's 4 centre midfielders who were in the first team squad. Like I think there was a Henry Lansbury at the time, couldn't even get in the first team squad. And I'm thinking, I'm never going to be better than him. You know what I mean? It's so daunting at such a young age. So I think that was definitely would have helped if I had someone to speak to about those issues. Yeah.
Excellent. And then I guess moving forward from that, you talk 17, 18, your performances kind of dips naturally. Changes. What led to your release? How did you feel when you got released? Was there a sense of...
Okay, so I think I had a year left on my deal. I signed a pro when I was 17, and I think I left when I was 18, coming towards 19. And yeah, they just pulled me in and just said, look, we don't think you're good enough to play in the Premier League. We don't think you're good enough to affect our first team. If you want to stay for the other year, you can, but you're not going to play a lot. We're going to put younger lads ahead of you. We're not going to push you to under 23s, under 21s at the time. So yeah, you're welcome to leave. And look, it was, I'll be honest, raw. Look, it was absolutely soul destroying. It crushed me. I drove home straight away, and I was gutted. I was in tears with my old man, and it was really hard for him as well because obviously we'd gone from such a high 2 or 3 years earlier, and sort of thinking my whole life was going to be a footballer and blah blah. And then 2.5 years later, you get smashed in the face, and all of that seems very, very far away again. So yeah, I was gutted. But I had an agent at the time, and he was really nice, but he was sort of banking on me playing for Arsenal, I think. it was quite a big agency. It was a massive London-based agency, and they had some really big names. So he was disappointed, let's say, that that was getting released from Arsenal. But he sorted out everything that needed to be sorted out, and then yeah, they took me to West Brom. So that was my next move, sort of thing.
And how did it go there? How did that feel, the transition from Arsenal to West Brom? So you're still playing at the elite level, but it's not as big a club. How did that go?
Yeah.
Did you feel like a big fish?
Yeah, very much so. So I was obviously gutted about leaving Arsenal, and then everything that comes with that, everyone knowing that you've been released from Arsenal, everyone back home in Gloucester and Cheltenham sort of, I thought you were going to be this big star. But that hasn't quite worked out. But okay, but we're trying to go.
How did you deal with that mentally? Because I know I was nowhere near.
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't at the time, mate. I said I would only say I've only dealt with that sort of from about probably like from going to university, I would say. And I had a year we'll speak about at the Nike Academy, which helped me deal with that as well, because that was for lads who were in the same situation who've been released. But we'll touch on that. But I don't think I ever really dealt with it before the age of 22, 23, and it affected me socially as well as in my sport, because I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to see people, because I thought the first thing they're going to ask me is what happened at football, or how are you getting on at football, or are you still at Arsenal, what happened, why did you get released? And it just it made me think, oh, I don't want to come into contact with people who I haven't seen for a while, because I'll have to explain I didn't make it, they didn't fancy me, things didn't work out. And it's just, and I know lads go through it, because I've spoke to lads, and
identity, right? That's who you are.
And the whole thing since I was 8 years old, I've always been known as a really good up and coming footballer, because I always played well at the local teams. I got moved up age groups, and then the same happened at Cheltenham. Then I got this move, and everyone knew me as a footballer. Jamie Edge the footballer, Jamie Edge the footballer. And all of a sudden, I was still at West Brom, but even when I left West Brom as well, that was when it hit me really hard. Yeah. You weren't no longer a footballer, so people would speak to you, and you'd feel like, well, I have no identity. I have nothing to speak to you about, because you'd almost feel, and it's a very dramatic way of saying it, but you'd feel slightly worthless. You'd feel like,
no, it's not. It's true. It's very true.
Yeah. And you'd feel like I have no identity anymore. And until you meet people in the same situation and you can relate to them, which I did at the Nike Academy, you then feel a bit more comfortable talking about it. But I could never talk to it about. I couldn't talk to it about with my neutral friends who weren't in football. I hated it. It really tore me up. Like, so.
Yeah, you need those.
It took me years,
right? And people have lived that journey.
It took me years to speak about it, mate. It took me years, and it did really beat me up inside. Yeah, really bad.
So how did the move to the Nike Academy come about? That's after West Brom, right? What happened at West Brom?
Yeah, so West Brom was great. I can't speak highly enough about West Brom. Went in and I went straight into the reserves at 18. I played with some great players. So our reserve team, I think, was Berahino, George Thorne, Sam Manton, Donovan Daniels, Graham Dorrans playing our reserves. So really high standard. And we had a coach called Dave Oldfield, who's a real good mentor to me. He was brilliant, and I trained a few times with the first team. Like every Tuesday we trained with the first team. Roy Hodgson was there. He used to comment, well done, well trained. I never got in a first team squad or anything, but felt like I was really progressing again. And then I picked up an injury. I picked up a peroneal tendonitis injury, which put me out for about 3 months. Now that isn't the reason I didn't make it as a footballer, but it didn't help. It really stopped my progression at West Brom, because I was doing quite well. And then, like we spoke about before we press record, that when you're hot, everyone wants to know you, but when you're not hot and you're injured, or maybe coming back from injury and you're not playing as well, football's so fickle. It's so cutthroat. And basically, I come back, I wasn't as fit as I could be, and then I didn't play as well as I could be. And I think they signed a few experienced pros for the first team, and they had Sam Manton and George Thorne signing pros. They had no room for me. It was a smaller club, so they didn't have as many pros like we spoke about at Arsenal. Like, they probably had like 15 lads in the reserve team between first team, whereas Arsenal had 80. So there was just no room for me. So I got released from there. They let me go. Dave Oldfield was really good to me. He said, look, you're a great lad. He said, we really like you, but there's no room for you. I said, yep, fair enough. I took that on the chin. And then that was when my agent left me. So I still had a year. I think I still had about 6 months left on my contract with my agency. They then never returned my calls. They didn't return my dad's calls. They just sort of cut ties with me. And I just let that contract run down. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't get hold of them. So they didn't help me find another club. So I went to a few different places on trial, but I wasn't fit, so it was very difficult. And then I thought back to, it was about 3 months earlier when I was at West Brom. A gentleman come in and started promoting the Nike Academy, and basically it was 4 lads that had been released from pro clubs between the age of sort of 18 and 20, and just to sort of give them a second chance. And 18, 19-year-olds, it's very difficult to say that they're fully developed and they know and they're the complete player. So they believed in giving lads an extra year, full-time training, sponsored by Nike. And then we travelled Europe playing football, and we were based at Loughborough. And I went down there. I went to Loughborough about 2 weeks into their program because I was still injured at the time. And I just said, look, I'm injured at the moment, but please can I come and get some physio and then train with you and just try and prove my worth. Yeah. So they said, yeah, no problem. We've heard about you. We've seen you play. Come along. So I went along. They treated me for 2 weeks, got myself fit. And then I trained, and they said, yeah, we want to offer you a place. We really like you. And then I spent a year there, and as a singled out year, probably the best year of my career. Yeah. In terms of what I said about earlier, meeting lads who were like-minded, who had all been released. Some of them have been one of my really good mates now, Alex Parsons. He's doing a lot of PTing with Premier League footballers. Yeah. He played in League One and maybe even the Championship for Bournemouth. Yeah. And then chucked out on the scrap heap. Yeah. Exactly, yeah. So meeting people like that, and I was like, oh wow, this just happened to other people as well. And we all sort of we created such a close bond. We see each other twice a year, still go on holiday together, and it was such a close bond of common ground where we've all been released, and we used to joke about the conversations we have when we go to family parties. Are you still playing football? What happened? We used to joke about it. So I used to find it so much easier to speak to him about it. And then there was coaches there who did very much so act as mentors. Jimmy Gilligan, Ryan Gary, and then Ash Gilligan as well. They were really good blokes, and they took us in. And we went to Man United. We played at Barcelona. We played at Espanyol. Yeah. We went across to Sweden and played against Ostersons. Yeah. We went to Belgium and played against Club Brugge. Wow. So it was brilliant. And the whole time we were sponsored by Nike, so we'd get free Nike kit. They paid for all our food, and we lived on campus at Loughborough in our own sort of halls, if you like. And 24/7 we were together. So the bond we created was incredible. So then coming out of there, obviously the purpose of that year is to try and get a club at the end of it. Yeah. So I come out of that. I went to Tamworth in non-league for about a month whilst at the programme, then come back. And at the end of the year, I went to Newport. Yeah. So the following pre-season, I went to Newport. They'd seen me play, and they were relatively interested in me. I spent 6 weeks at Newport, went to Germany with them under Justin Edinburgh. And I'd done really well. And I thought, I could get a move here. It was looking promising. And my agent at the time, I had a new agent, a Welsh lad. He was an independent lad, and I was living with him in Cardiff. And then one day, Justin Edinburgh called me in and said, look, you've done really well. We like you, good lad, but there's no room for you. So it's getting released again. Yeah. So it was another blow. And you know yourself, bro, like, you know when you haven't done well. You know when you haven't played well. Because we're honest lads, like, but you know when you've done well as well. Absolutely. And that's the worst thing, when you think, I've done all right here. I'm not out of place. I could do well, and then you get kicked in the teeth. It just doubles up, like, you know what I mean? So so that was the journey through Nike Academy, then out of Nike Academy into sort of what I thought was going to be the end goal of the Nike Academy, to get a pro club. Would have been a perfect finish, but obviously that didn't happen. So then I got knocked back again at Newport, and then I was sort of back to square one, really, because you can't go back to the Nike Academy. It's only a year process. Yeah.
So you've done that. So then what happened from there? Is this where you went to university and found a mentor?
You still there, mate?
Yeah, I'm still there, mate. Sorry, just lagged a little bit.
Sorry, mate.
Yeah, so from there, is this where you sort of found Rico and a bit of a mentor in him, and ended up at university? So I'll expand on so Hartbury University. This is where me and Jamie met. Is, again, it's a fantastic university, basically for sport and equine, mainly out in the Gloucestershire countryside, and it gives lads like us a bit of a second chance, bite of the cherry, not only with football but also education. So yeah, Jamie, take it from there, mate. Tell me what happened there.
Yeah, so come out of that, and I was 21, and I just remember sitting with my dad, and I was obviously upset, and I said to my dad, I said, I still want to be a footballer. And my dad said, I understand that, son. I said, and he said, you still got a chance, but you have to look at life now. You have to get an education. Remember, I had 2 GCSEs because I left Arsenal and didn't do any GCSEs because I was supposed to be this next in Steven Gerrard.
Yeah.
That didn't happen at all. So I'm sat here now with no club, no education, and then I got sort of thrown a lifeline by Rico. So I remember Mark Richards ringing me and saying, "Look, Jamie, we've heard about your story. Would you be interested in coming down to Hartpury College and just looking around the facilities?" And I said, yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, that'd be brilliant. And my dad was really encouraging me, and my mum and dad were really encouraging me to take an education route now. So I've got a backup. So yeah, I went down to meet Rico, and as soon as I met him, I become relatable and such a well-spoken, enthusiastic man about football and life. I really sort of felt an affinity towards him. So love the facilities. It's an unbelievable place for football, equine, coaching, sports science. It's a really incredible facility. So that was really impressive. So he offered me a scholarship there, and I took that scholarship and went in and played with the first team at Hartpury where we met, Raw.
Yeah.
And just started my education. Now, the first year of my education was probably one of the most painful things I've ever done in my life. I remember ringing Rico about January saying, "I can't do this, mate. I'm leaving." And he called me in his office and said, "Look," he said, "just get a degree." He said, "All you need to do is get your head down, get a degree after these 3 years." And he said it would open up so many doors. Yeah. And he put together a plan for me where I could call him, I could speak to him. There was another lad called Tim Bell, who's now working at Chelteham Town, I think. He put together a bit of a schedule for me, and if I had any problems on assignments or anything like that, I could just go to them and just speak to them and just bounce ideas off them, and they would help me out, because I'd been out of education so long and just dismissed education that when I started getting assignments and lectures and stuff like that, I thought, this isn't what I want to do. But Rico stopped me leaving. He said, "No, this is the best thing for you, mate." He said, "You're still training full time. You're still playing at a high level." Yeah. At the time, I was playing for Gloucester City in the Conference North. Yeah. And he just really, really encouraged me and just sort of opened my eyes to the reality of life. If I didn't get a degree, I don't know what I'd been. I don't know what I'd have done, mate. You know what I mean? I'd have probably gone into. I don't know. It would have been very difficult. Yeah. So yeah, that was my first year at uni, and I was marrying up playing non-league football. I played for a variety of non-league teams during uni. So the predominant team I played for was Western-super-Mare. So marrying up sort of your education and full-time training at Hartpury, and then playing on a Wednesday, and then playing non-league football, as you know, was a test in itself as well.
It's a good level as well, really. It's not a bad level, is it, down there?
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's tough. It is tough. It's tough to combine them all. How did you feel like? Obviously, you've gone from Arsenal to West Brom to the Nike Academy, which still has a bit of prestige attached. You know, I'm sure most people at release want to end up there if they don't end up at a club. It's
absolutely, yeah.
Your identity now to Newport, not offering you anything, and now you're a student solely, a student in a non-league. How did that fit in your own? How was your mental health around that? How was your head with that? I know you struggled academically, but
so mental health around those sort of times was really poor. So just really going inside myself. I love socialising with the lads at Hartpury, because again, I had common ground, common goal with them. They had the same things happen to them, but socialising outside that bubble was really difficult for me. I'd breakdowns in many occasions where I didn't want to go to family parties. I didn't want to go on a night out in Cheltenham. I didn't want to go on a night out in Gloucester, because I just knew everyone would ask me, "What are you doing? How's football going?" And then I used to always think, well, I can say I play for West Brom, that's not bad. Or I can say I play at the Nike Academy, that's not bad. But then saying, I'm now studying at Hartpury, which I was proud of, because I was playing, because I knew, and you know, that that's a really good level, and all the lads I was playing with knew it's a good level. But anyone outside of that, they just thought, what, you're playing university football and you're playing for Western-super-Mare? Who's that? Yeah. So it used to really hurt me, and I struggled for years and years and years dealing with that. But then I just tried to keep like my friends close and the circle close, where the football lads, and because they understand, and I tried to be that for other people as well, because I knew other lads were going through that. So I would try and speak to the other lads about it and be like, "Hey, look," and we try and make a joke out of it, and we're all been released here, mate. You know what I mean? And just find a happy comment about it. So
definitely, that's good. And then, so obviously graduated. We spoke about off camera, but you graduated now and living a successful life in a completely different career. I guess
Yeah.
for me, what I'm trying to open people's eyes to, young footballers who are getting released, living the same journey me and you've been through. That skill set that you learned when you're at Arsenal, when you're at Cheltenham, when you're at West Brom, Nike, even at Newport, and definitely Western, and these places where you really have to dig in.
Yeah.
So how did you find the those transferable skills? So from football into sales that you're working in now, for me,
Yeah.
in hindsight, it transfers very easily, but to someone younger who might not see it, what would you say the links are, and how are you making a success of yourself now?
Oh, there's huge transferable skills, and that was something that Rico took me back to when I tried to leave uni, and said, you will learn so many transferable skills through your football, through a degree, and then you'll be able to take them into the real world. So there's hundreds of working in a team, being disciplined, determination, meeting goals, meeting times set for you, working under pressure. So all of these things that I've learned in football from a very young age, and taking setbacks as well. So when you go into the real world, things aren't plain sailing. Like in sales, I get knockbacks every day. So using those transferable skills, and that was something I played upon heavily in my interview process when I went to recruitment interviews, and when I went for my actual interview at the job I'm at now, which I've been at for 4 years. I played heavily on it, and I said I'm a sportsman. I said I'm an ex-professional sportsman. I know I was only professional for 2-3 years. Yeah, and I just honed in on those skills, and I said, look, I'm disciplined. I'm target driven. I can work under pressure, and they loved it. And my boss now, luckily, he's a huge mentor to me in a business world. So he's a little bit different to my sporting mentors. He loved it, and he said, I want people like yourself, and they do. People in business, people in real world want sports minded people because of those transferable skills. And young lads 11, 12 up to 16 years old won't see that, and they'll think it's a failure, and they'll think I only want to be a footballer and football is everything. But the things you learn through the process of being a footballer or trying to become a footballer, it will stand you in such good stead socially, academically, professionally, in all areas of life. It will. So even though I've had so many setbacks and really suffered in mental health issues, which I'm not now, I'm fine now, but I think you would take all that. Keep phone calls.
Yeah, mate, absolutely. And I agree wholeheartedly with yourself. Same for me. So, just last question, just to wrap up. It's been really insightful, to be honest. Really, really good to hear your story. Good. What advice would you give to a young kid who, I mean, it's not that time of the year now, but in April, say, where kids are getting released, what advice would you give to them in terms of pastures new? Like, what would you say? Go and have a look at this option. Would it be university? Yeah. Would it just be confidence? Would it be talking with someone neutral? I don't know. What would you?
The biggest thing I would say would not be, don't be ashamed of being released, and don't pin your identity on being a footballer. I would say explore different avenues. Don't dismiss education. Don't dismiss a college or maybe an apprenticeship in another skill. And certainly don't dismiss non-league football, because I know my mindset towards non-league football was I didn't even want to play non-league football. I dismissed it. I thought it was pub football. But the standard in non-league football is so high, and there's so many talented young lads in non-league football. My mate, Ed Williams, he's just recently gone to Doncaster Rovers. He spent 4, 5, 6 years in non-league football, grafting out every Tuesday, Saturday, and now he's just got to move to League One at 24 years old.
This is inspirational, man. So I might try and get in with him, actually. But yeah, it's an inspirational story as well.
Oh, you have to speak to him, mate, because what he's done is incredible. And I know we spoke off camera about Scott Wilson. He done the same. He's an inspiration. Yeah. And these boys have been released at 16, 17, 18 and put on a scrap heap, and they fought their way back into football, which is possible. And they've done that through non-league football. They've done that through education. They've done that through working at a pub. Yeah, delivering food. Do you know what I mean? They've had to go and earn a living and scrap, in the real world, and then they've gone back in. There's so many lads I play with in non-league who are an inspiration, who are such good footballers who haven't quite made it.
Same. You are equally though. The thing to go from the you had and the crushing lows and to come back out and I'm sure you're inspirational to many people as well, myself definitely included. The way you dealt with everything and where you are now. It's an incredible story.
Yeah.
It really is.
Cheers,
So
mate. Appreciate
thank
that.
you so much for your time. We'll end this interview now. But yeah, again, an inspiration. Thanks again. It's great to hear
No
you.
problem, Raw.
Cheers,
Thank
mate.
you very much, mate.